The darkness came before the dawn of humanity. In those ancient times, when our ancestors first dared to walk upright across the African savanna, they were not the apex predators we are today. They were prey, hunted, stalked by creatures so massive and merciless that survival meant hiding in shadows, scavenging scraps, and praying to gods that didn't yet exist. Imagine stepping into that world. No weapons beyond sharpened sticks, no fire to ward off the night, no shelter but the hollows of trees and the crevices of rocks. Your entire existence balanced on a knife's edge between life and a brutal, tearing death. The Earth of 3 million years ago was a realm of giants. Saber-toothed cats, the size of modern lions, prowled the grasslands, their canine teeth growing up to 7 inches long, designed not just to kill, but to puncture the thick hides of megafauna. These were the Machirodontinae, evolutionary perfection in the art of assassination. But they were merely the beginning of our ancestors' nightmares. Above them soared teratons, prehistoric vultures with wingspans reaching 12 feet. These weren't scavengers waiting for death, they were dealers of it. Argentavis magnificens could lift prey weighing up to 30 pounds, carrying early hominids away to mountain peaks, where their screams would echo unanswered across the valleys below. Archaeological evidence suggests these flying titans actively hunted our ancestors, their massive talons perfectly adapted for gripping bipedal prey. But what turned these apex predators into killers wasn't just hunger, it was desperation. The world was changing, and even giants can starve. The Pliocene epoch was ending, and with it came the Great Cooling. Global temperatures dropped by nearly 10 degrees Fahrenheit over just a few 100,000 years. The lush forests that had covered Africa began to shrink, replaced by expanding grasslands that offered little shelter and even less mercy. Our ancestors, the Australopithecines, found themselves caught in an evolutionary bottleneck. Adapt to this new world of exposed plains and circling predators, or join the countless species already claimed by extinction. Lucy, the famous Australopithecus afarensis discovered in Ethiopia, tells us a story written in bone. Her skeleton reveals evidence of both predation and survival. Tooth marks on her remains suggest she fell victim to a crocodilian ambush near an ancient lake. But the healed fractures on her bones tell another tale. She had survived multiple attacks before her final encounter with death. This was not a species that went gentle into that long night. Consider the odds they faced daily. Massive hyenas called Pachyrhocutta brevirostris roamed in packs of 30 or more, their bone-crushing jaws capable of snapping a human femur like a twig. These weren't the laughing hyenas we know today. They were dire wolves wrapped in hyena skin, weighing up to 400 pounds each and possessing a bite force that could crack open the skull of a rhinoceros. Yet somehow, impossibly, our ancestors endured. They developed strategies that seem almost supernatural in their cleverness. Recent archaeological findings at Olduvai Gorge reveal evidence of cooperative hunting behaviors dating back 2.6 million years. Our ancestors learned to work together, to communicate danger through primitive calls, to share resources even when scarcity meant death for the generous. But their greatest innovation wasn't cooperation, it was cunning. While the giants relied on brute strength, early hominids developed something far more dangerous: intelligence applied to violence. The first tools weren't for building or creating, they were for killing. Sharp-edged stones napped with precision, wooden spears hardened in fires that took generations to master. These primitive weapons transformed prey into predators, turning the hunted into the hunters. The balance of power was shifting, though the giants didn't know it yet. Then came the volcanic winter that changed everything. Mount Toba erupted 74,000 years ago with a force that makes modern nuclear weapons seem like firecrackers. The explosion ejected over 670 cubic miles of ash and debris into the atmosphere, blanketing the entire planet in darkness for months. Temperatures plummeted by up to 21 degrees Fahrenheit. The genetic bottleneck this catastrophe created was so severe that all modern humans descend from perhaps as few as 3,000 survivors. The megafauna that had terrorized our ancestors for millions of years couldn't adapt to this new world of perpetual winter and acid rain. One by one, the giants fell. The massive cats starved as their prey vanished. The terror birds froze in their roosts. The dire wolves turned on each other in desperation before succumbing to the endless cold. Yet in hidden caves and forgotten valleys, small groups of humans huddled around precious fires, sharing stories that would eventually become myths, passing down knowledge that would rebuild civilization from ash. They had learned the most important lesson of all. When the world ends, it's not the strongest who inherit the earth, it's the most adaptable. The age of giants was ending, but the age of humans had barely begun. And in that transition, written in stone and bone, and the very DNA we carry today, lies a truth both terrifying and profound. If you want to uncover how these survivors became conquerors, how prey transformed into the ultimate predator, follow us into the shadows where history's greatest secrets wait to be unearthed. The survivors of Toba emerged from their caves into a world transformed beyond recognition. The earth they had known was gone, replaced by a desolate wasteland where ice sheets stretched to the horizon and the very air burned their lungs with volcanic toxins. But something else had changed too, something far more dangerous than any saber-toothed cat or terror bird they had ever faced. They had changed. And that transformation would make them the most lethal species the planet had ever known. What happens when intelligent predators are stripped of everything except the will to survive? What emerges from that crucible isn't just adaptation, it's evolution weaponized. The post-Toba world was a graveyard of giants. Fossilized remains tell us that over 70% of large mammal species vanished during this volcanic winter. The Machairodontinai, those perfect killing machines that had stalked our ancestors for millions of years, simply disappeared from the fossil record. Their specialized hunting techniques, honed over evolutionary epochs, became useless when there was nothing left to hunt. But humans learned to hunt each other. Archaeological evidence from this period reveals a dark truth that anthropologists rarely discuss publicly. Cut marks on human bones from sites across Africa and Asia show clear signs of cannibalism, not ritualistic consumption, but desperate, systematic butchering for survival, marrow extraction marks on infant skulls, deliberate breakage patterns on adult femurs. The survivors of humanity's greatest bottleneck had become something their ancestors could never have imagined, apex predators feeding on their own species. But this wasn't madness, this was adaptation at its most ruthless. The volcanic winter had eliminated the traditional prey animals that sustained both humans and their predatory competitors. In this new world, the greatest source of available protein walked on two legs and carried the same desperate intelligence. Groups that couldn't bring themselves to cross that final taboo simply starved. Those that could became something unprecedented in Earth's history. Obligate social predators with the cognitive capacity to plan, deceive, and coordinate kills across vast territories. Recent analysis of stone tools from this period reveals innovations that appear nowhere else in the archaeological record. Specialized blades designed not for hunting animals, but for processing human remains. Hafted weapons with grip modifications that suggest they were used repeatedly in close-quarters combat against bipedal opponents. Most disturbing of all, evidence of tool standardization across widely separated populations, suggesting that the techniques of human predation were being systematically taught and refined. Consider what this means. While other species struggled to adapt to a world without their traditional food sources, humans were actively creating new ones. Every rival band encountered wasn't competition for scarce resources, they were the resources. The same intelligence that had once helped them avoid becoming prey for saber-toothed cats was now being used to transform other humans into livestock. But the volcanic winter couldn't last forever. As the ash settled and the ice began to retreat, something unprecedented occurred. The human populations that had survived through cannibalistic adaptation didn't simply return to their previous lifestyles. They had tasted something that would change the trajectory of evolution itself, absolute dominance through coordinated violence. The megafauna that began to re-establish themselves in the warming world faced a threat unlike anything that had existed before Toba. These weren't the scattered defensive hominids that had once hidden from predators. These were organized killing machines that had spent millennia perfecting the art of hunting the most dangerous prey on Earth, other intelligent hunters. Woolly mammoths, standing 14 feet tall and weighing 6 tons, had survived ice ages for hundreds of thousands of years. But they had never faced coordinated human hunting parties armed with weapons tested in warfare against their own species. Cave paintings from this era don't show humans cowering from these giants. They show systematic hunting strategies with detailed illustrations of how to position hunters to maximize killing efficiency while minimizing casualties. The speed of the megafaunal extinctions that followed is staggering from an evolutionary perspective. Giant ground sloths that had thrived for millions of years vanished within a few thousand years of human expansion. Saber-toothed cats, finally recovering from the volcanic winter, found themselves hunted to extinction by creatures a tenth their size but infinitely more cunning. The terror birds that had once carried off human children were systematically eliminated, their nesting sites raided, their eggs destroyed with methodical precision. This wasn't natural selection. This was genocide conducted by species that had learned to kill for survival and discovered they were very, very good at it. But perhaps the most chilling evidence comes from genetic analysis of modern human populations. The DNA of every person alive today carries markers of this violent bottleneck. We are all descended from cannibals, from survivors who learned that the difference between prey and predator isn't size or strength. It's the willingness to do whatever survival demands, regardless of the cost to conscience or soul. The question that haunts evolutionary biologists isn't how our ancestors survived when the giants fell. It's whether the thing that crawled out of those post-Toba caves was still human at all, or something else entirely. Something that had learned to wear humanity like a disguise while hunting everything else to extinction. And if that creature still lives within our DNA, waiting in the shadows of civilization for the next collapse, what happens when the lights go out again and we remember what we really are? The giants are gone. The prey has become the predator, and somewhere in the fossil record of our own making lies the proof that the most dangerous species on Earth has always been us. Follow us deeper into the darkness, where the truth about human nature waits to be excavated from the bones of our own victims.